they're being a little bit more lenient towards him after these interviews. And I think it has to do with the fact that he was able to do that. He was able to use his senses. They're so perplexed about it, the same way that I'm perplexed about why more people are now watching my videos, because I don't think there's anything out there that's coming from the point of view of observing people as if they were actors, like my channel is. Hello, everyone. This is Mihaela with the Art of Experiencing. I am so ready to do the analysis from an acting perspective of Prince Harry. Who else? He's the only one that happens to be in the news now because he's telling his story yet again in interviews, promoting his book, Spare. This is going to be the interview that he did on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper. I have to give him credit. I know I was not thinking that I was going to be able to do this. Watching from some of the reactions of some of the people already to the interviews that he did, what I realized that he's doing, which he did not do in the Netflix series, is that somebody must have taught him. I don't think it's his B-list celebrity wife. Somebody taught him in the way that he is actually audio reading the book, and somebody who wrote the book or somebody else, his therapist, someone is teaching him how to describe events from his life by using all of his senses. This is such a powerful tool that actors, especially method acting actors, are basing their acting on. When you are describing something, when you're describing an event and you're just making a general statement about the event without using the description involving the senses, that general statement is not going to pull at anybody's heartstrings. But if you're going into the description by using your senses, that is going to create sympathy for the person who's describing it. And I see some people talking about the fact that they feel sorry for him. And what do I mean by that? When he's describing on Anderson Cooper in the first segment, the fact that his brother, Prince of Wales, Prince William, he is balding more so than Prince Harry is balding, therefore not keeping the similarities he had with their late mother, Princess Diana. The baldness of someone, going so specific and so intimate about someone's appearance, knowing that the person's appearance, all of our appearance, cannot be helped. As we get older, there are things that are happening to us. So for him to go into such an intimate detail, to say about his brother that his baldness happened quicker than his baldness, therefore losing the similarities that Prince William had with their late mother, Princess Diana, then automatically he goes to say, but I love my family. I just want to reconcile with my family. My brother, I love my brother. Cooper reacts to that by saying, that's cutting. And it's really funny because he uses the word cutting, like cutting hair, baldness. I thought it was kind of funny. But he doesn't go any further to push him and say, why would you want to describe your brother's baldness? Why? Can you give us a little bit more details about that? So what he does, he uses the sensory. He will make us visualize the baldness of his brother by relating it to Princess Diana, because that for sure will attract people's emotions to arise. But nobody is asking him, what makes you say that? Why would you want to make that description? And what does that have to do with anything? Because I don't understand the relevance, except for the fact that maybe he himself has a complex with the facial beard that I talk about in all of my videos. And I don't think anybody ever talked about it the way that I do. People are not understanding why the Queen and why Prince William, as he says, was making him shave off the beard when he married to Meghan. And everybody's perplexed about it. I believe to this day that Meghan Markle, because she feels like she would look older than Prince Harry if he were to shave his beard, he made him keep his beard. Prince Harry, when he discusses the event and the fight that he had with Prince William, to say that Prince William commanded him, because he's the heir and he's only the spare, he commanded him to shave off, even though the late Queen was okay with it. He doesn't go deeper to say, Maybe there was something more about that situation, meaning maybe Prince William knew that Meghan was the one that was controlling the way that his appearances, his brother's appearances, Harry's appearances, wanted to be kept because Meghan was insistent on not letting him take off his beard. Anderson Cooper doesn't go into that. He just says that's very cutting. And then he kind of leaves it off. And then he goes into the next segment where he shows pictures of the two of them as they were growing up to say, but your relationship when you were growing up was so extremely beautiful and wonderful. And Prince Harry goes on to say, well, yeah, it seemed like it was really wonderful, but we were actually living separate lives, right? That's what he says. Even when we went to school, we happened to be in the same school during the period of so-and-so, of such and such, and Prince William was telling him to pretend not to know him, which is, that happens between siblings, that happens between people. It's not something that's just happening to him. I think what kind of makes me a little bit sad about the whole situation and the way that he's describing all of these events is that he believes he's the only one on this planet who's been sad in his life, who's lost in his life. Do you know how many people there are out there who have gone through similar situations of trauma, of loss, of not being able to grieve? And those people do not have the same privileged life and the same opportunities and the same sources that this guy has to be able to overcome them. To watch him still feeling that he has not been able to get over it, to me, does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think the reason why he's doing it, he's choosing to go back and relive those situations, is because he wants to be relevant. He doesn't have anything else to be relevant with. He hasn't done anything on himself. He hasn't done anything by himself in his work to show relevance in the world. The only thing that he has to focus on is the past. So then he taps into the past. He drops into those events. And I don't understand why people say, the poor lad, why is he reliving all of these emotions? Why is he reliving all of those events? The death of Princess Diana. The actors have to do that all the time. Great actors have to do that all the time. They have to relive personal events from their life, and they have to experience those, and then they have to set them to the side on the shelf. That's the difference. They have to put them on the side. They have to put them on the shelf and have the knowledge to know those events were in the past. Those events were in the past. You only go to them when a role is calling upon you to have an emotion as a character. And if the imaginary fictional story of the character or the fictional events of the character do not make you feel anything, then you go to the personal events that you had placed on the shelf. For Prince Harry to drop into those events from the past when he mentally doesn't seem like he's stable to do so, then that's really sad. People who have been at the actor studio, when the artistic director of the actor studio, Lee Strasberg, I talk about him all the time, the one who adapted the system from Stanislavski, The Art of Experiencing, to the American actors. There is an incident that people tell those of us who have not been around when Lee Strasberg was around, where there was an actor and he was finishing a show, in that show, and his character and the role that he was in was demanding of him to be so emotional. At the end of it, the same actor, when the curtain came down, when everybody was applauding and the show was over, the actor kept on crying. And everybody in the audience thought, my God, what an amazing actor. He's still living the emotional life of the character. And Strasberg said, stop. Do not applaud somebody for not being able to realize the play is over and now understand the reality of what is. He's an actor, he's playing a character, he did the emotional life of the character. Now it is over. If you're not ready mentally, emotionally, to be able to distinguish between this is the past, this is the event that I'm going to recall as an actor to bring to the character, but when the play is over, I'm going to be able to stop it, then Strasberg said to the actor, do not come back. You're not ready to be an actor. Because if you're not mentally okay, if you're not emotionally okay, to be able to make that difference, to distinguish between the two, to keep dropping into those past experiences, that's when it becomes dangerous. I think maybe with the therapy he says he's been having for a long time, thank God to the therapy, thank God to what he's been able to understand, thank God he's been able to grow as a man. But what I think happened is when the B-list wife came into the picture a few years ago, I think she was the one that realized how to manipulate him into those situations by dragging him back to relive his past. And I think that's where the danger is. I think the reason why now he's revealing all of these things about himself, about his family, the relationship, the horrible relationship he's had with all of the members of the family almost, are coming up to surface again, because I think his wife, Meghan, was the one that was getting him to go back into them, even though at some point maybe he was able to overcome them and to go into the second part of the therapy where he was understanding, okay, those are the things that were really horrible. My mom's passing while I was a child was really, really sad. I'm dealing with that. I'm overcoming them. As actors, if you're going to self-indulge in emotional life on stage or in front of a camera, and if you stay in it and you don't have a purpose to get out of it, if you don't have a drive, if you don't have a goal to overcome those emotional hurtful situations, there's nowhere to go as a character. There's nowhere to go in the story. People will become bored of your selfishness, emotional masturbation, mental masturbation. There was another incident, there was even physical masturbation. Some actors who are not understanding method acting, they were talking about the private moment that comes from Stanislavski again, and Public Solitude to Private Moment by Lee Strasberg, is where an actor, in order to be able to take down the facade, to be able to reveal the humanness, all of us has to choose something that they would do in everyday life, but would change the way they're doing it when somebody else walked into the room. Because it's asking of you to not be afraid to reveal events or to reveal a part of yourself in public. And most of the actors would understand it, but there are still those actors who, there was one actor that happened to go on stage and he actually was going to masturbate, like physically masturbate, because he thought the more intimate that he goes, the more he will be considered a great actor. No, that's not what we want. That's not what this is about. Not about your emotions as an actor. This is about trying to rise up to the character's life and use your emotions if necessary, if the imagination is not working, to be able to overcome the challenges the character has or that you have as an actor. The reason for the emotions as an actor, as a great actor, is to then be able to overcome those emotions and to rise up to what the goal is in the story. So people who don't understand great acting, and there's so many people who don't understand great acting, they will be fooled by this interview with Anderson Cooper more so than the Netflix docu-series or whatever you want to call it, because he has been taught, somebody has taught him how to use his senses, how to make descriptions of certain events where he wants sympathy from people. And he does that. But when he goes to the events, like I talked about with the baldness of William, he doesn't go into details. He doesn't go to describe that sensorially. He doesn't go to use the senses in describing that. But he will fool a lot of people, because already watching this morning, the interviews were yesterday, and watching this morning, there are people who are afraid to say anything they believe about those events in relation to Princess Diana and how he felt about it, because they take a step back out of fear of not saying something that is incorrect, and people will judge them for not being able to understand this boy was traumatized at a young age by his mother's death. I'm not saying that that's not traumatizing for anybody, but if you have had so much time pass, and if you had been in therapy the way that you say you have, why now, and why is everything rising back up? Why is he reliving those events? And I think it has to do with Meghan, because from the very first segment, he says, this has nothing to do with my wife. I want to reveal my relationship with William having been apart for longer than when I met my wife. So he's always trying to find an excuse. He's always trying to put in the mind of the people watching, she had nothing to do with anything. Talking about what he remembers when his father comes into the room to let him know that Princess Diana did not make it, and the way that his father placed his hand on his knees, and he says, my dear boy, she did not make it. Early in the morning, I couldn't cry. He couldn't cry, going into, again, what I was talking about, the sensory details, description with involving all of his senses, therefore involving our senses as the audience. Then he remembers from the funeral, walking behind the casket. He remembers the sound. This is what I mean. He remembers the sound of the gravel under his foot. He remembers the silence. Again, he wants us to be part of his event as he's describing it right now, because that's the way that you pull at somebody's heartstrings again. That's a very good way of getting sympathy from people, and he's doing it. This is what I'm saying. He's doing it much more here than he did it in Netflix. He also talks about, very descriptive, this is going to be the perfect example, when he was going to greet mourners and he was hearing the wailing of some of them and then the silence, and as he was taking flowers from the people that had gathered to mourn the princess, his mother, he was taking the flowers or shaking their hands. He remembers the wetness of their palms. So if I describe the wetness of the palm of those people, to then say that it was because they were wiping their tears as they were crying, as they were grieving the death of Princess Diana, that's a very powerful moment, because he's using all the senses. Imagine if he just said, I remember being at my mother's funeral when she passed, and he left it at that. He doesn't leave it at that. He goes into the sensory description. That's what I was talking about. That's why so many more people are being sympathetic to this interview than Netflix. So from the doing of Netflix to now, somebody must have told them to use description by using the senses, because it's working. It's working for people who don't understand that's what he's doing. He couldn't cry. For a very long time, he kept on watching videos of his mom because he wanted so badly to cry. That's another very powerful reveal when anybody would make it. It's not just about him revealing such an intimate detail, but if I were to tell you that as a young girl in Romania, where I was raised by my grandmother, I was part of watching people dying. We would be taken to funerals, and the rituals of those funerals in the villages in Romania, in my village, I should talk about, are the women closer to the person who's deceased, they wail. There's a wailing. That stays with you. That stays with you for a very long time. Does it mean that now in my adulthood, I'm reliving those moments? No, I'm not, because I had to do things in my life. I had to find people, professional people, through my acting. I had to understand the difference between, yes, embrace those moments as an adult, because if you still focus on them and you see them as something that was hurtful and you still stay within that pain, that's not going to do you any good. And as an actor, you cannot stay in the pain. If you're going to show just the pain of a character and you don't show the struggle to overcome it and to rise above it, then you're going to be a victim for the rest of your life, and you're not going to be happy. You say you're happy. He says he's happy. There's not 1 ounce of happiness, of smile on his face when he talks about his family and he says that he's happy. Where is that? You are going to live your life like this, reliving those painful moments for the rest of your life, how are you going to accomplish the fatherhood? How are you going to accomplish becoming the best father that you can to your two children, the best husband? How are you going to become the best husband to your love of your life if you're going to stay and you're going to be immersed, drowning into the pain because you haven't yet been able to, with all the therapy, understand that you have to make the difference between, yes, those were part of my life, those moments, those horrible, painful moments, but now I have to get over them. How do I get over them? It feels like he wants to stay in them. And if you want to stay in them as an actor, you're being told to get off, get healed, and then come back. So you should have gotten healed before you wrote this. You should have been on the other side, or you should have at least been at the place in your life where you understood that you needed to get help to be able to make the difference between that stays in the past. It is okay that I'm feeling pain sometimes. It is okay that I love my mom. It is okay that I miss her with everything that I have. But to have all of these emotions raise up again, how are you gonna become that what you say you want to do and become as an adult? It doesn't make sense. Try to cry. I don't understand why you're not able to cry. I don't understand why you're having such a difficult time crying if you had a therapist you were working with, or if you have a therapist you're working with. That means that the therapist has to be changed. I mean, I don't know who the therapist is. The therapy that you're getting is not the specific therapy that you're needing. There's so many ways of crying. There's so many ways of dropping into the emotions. And it seems like you're using the sensory. So if you know the sensory and how to describe events, why aren't you using the sensory to be able to drop into those emotions? Get a good cry out of it that will release all of that pain that's being kept down inside of you. The only time that he cried during his teenage years was when he saw his mother's casket put in the ground. That was the only time that he was able to cry. Okay, so he cried because he had such a huge loss in his life and it was horrifying. How many people have not had somebody in their life die? I had somebody in my life who died in my arms. Do I think about that event? Yes, I do. Is it part of my life experience? Is it part of my backstory? Is it part of who I am? And will it always be? Yes. Am I able to recreate that event? Do I need to recreate that event and use my senses to go back in time and imagine the person in my arms dying? Do I need to do that in everyday life? Do I need to do it and make it public? No, I don't, because I know it's not going to do me any good. But if I have to be on stage and if I have the privilege to be able to act a part, and I am being asked to come up with an emotion, and in that moment, the emotion doesn't come due to my imagination, then do I go back by allowing my senses to recreate that event in my life? Yes, this is what I would do. I would just imagine where I was, the place. I would feel the person whom I was witness to in my arms. I would look at the person, and then after a couple of minutes, I would be able to do the emotion that I was asked to do for the character. That doesn't mean that I do it all the time. That doesn't mean that every day of my life is going to be about recreating that moment that was so painful. I'm using it for the purpose of getting an emotion for the character and then moving on. He doesn't have any purpose. The problem is he doesn't have any purpose in his life. The purpose he has right now is to put down everybody else that he can. And the only way that he knows how to rise up, he thinks, is by putting everybody else down and telling us all of the painful emotions and all of the painful situations from his life. And that without the goal of overcoming them. If you don't have the goal to overcome the pain, then it's going to be a victimhood experience for the rest of his life. And I'm saying this because it's not going to do him good. You know, people say, well, he should be he should be forgiven, and is King Charles going to forgive him for everything because, you know, he's his father, and of course you're going to forgive the son. If you're forgiving someone who is, let's just say, the character of Harry, you're not giving him the opportunity to get better, because you're forgiving him and you're saying everything that you're doing is okay. So he doesn't understand there's another step to our life story. Our goal always is to overcome smaller obstacles, bigger obstacles. If you're staying in the emotion, if you're staying in the pain, the same way that he is, in the way that he allows himself to be interviewed, only when he is being poked about something that he has rehearsed so well, in the way that he tells his monologue, there's somebody attempting, like Anderson Cooper or the other guy on ITV is attempting to poke him and to kind of move in different ways his monologue that's scripted in his mind. He gets upset about it because he doesn't want to be poked. He doesn't want to be challenged, but he doesn't understand the fact that he's getting challenged would help him get out of these emotional, painful situations from his past that he's allowing himself to put himself into. And I think it has to do with his wife, because she realized that's how you can grab a hold of someone. You can, because you're making them be in the vulnerable state all the time, rather than letting them know they can get from the vulnerability to strength. Vulnerability is courage if you allow the vulnerability to be a step closer to getting better. But if you're staying in it, you're going to be staying in it, and you're going to be telling us how happy you are with a miserable face, with a miserable expression on your face. Okay, he didn't believe the mother was dead, and he was hoping that she was hiding somewhere because she wanted to get away from the media, the paparazzi. Of course, that's the wishing of every child. Of course, that's the wishing of anybody who's lost someone. Do I wish my grandmother was still alive? Of course I do. She died when I was young, too. She was the person who took care of me during my childhood. She was everything I knew for the longest period of time in those forming years. Of course, I wish she was alive, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and I'm going to take the journey of her last days on this earth. If you're going to do that as a method actor, if you're going to put yourself in an event that is going to be dangerous to you, he's talking about the fact that he wanted to take the journey in the car and drive at the same speed with someone that was driving him through the tunnel in Paris where Princess Diana died. And he wanted to understand the journey of his mother. That is not sane for anybody to do. It's not even sane for a method actor to drop into a situation of the character he's portraying if that situation is dangerous. You don't need to do that. That is crazy to me, because there's something that's not resolved. And this is what I got from this interview. There's so much that's not resolved in this this character's life, and it's so sad to watch because of that, because he's still at a point in his life where you do not know what he's capable of doing. And this is really scary. This is really, really scary. And I think that by forgiving him, you are not going to do him any good. I think you're going to allow him to feel like what he's feeling is the right thing for him. And I don't think it's going to be right for him in the long run. It's kind of crazy, to be honest. I think I'm done for now.